What's up? I'm Nichole Daly, culinary producer here at Traeger. This is Traeger Kitchen, and today we're making pastrami. So first up, you gotta make a brine for pastrami. We've got some hot water here. I feel like a lot of people can get super intimidated by pastrami, but when you break it down, it's actually pretty simple. It just takes a lot of time, a little bit of knowledge, but we're gonna help you out with that today. So in our brine, we're gonna start with some brown sugar, granulated sugar, a good amount of salt, mustard seeds, pickling spice, and we're gonna do a bunch of garlic in here. You just wanna give them a quick smash before you throw them in. We're gonna give that a stir. The last thing we're gonna throw in here is curing salt. Now I think this is what intimidates people about pastrami. This stuff can be kind of intimidating. It can be kind of a mystery, but when you break it down, it's pretty simple. So Prague powder, there's two different kinds. There's a Prague powder number 1 and Prague powder number 2. We're gonna use number 1 today because this is a relatively short cure or brine. Number 2 is used for like charcuterie and things that brine for, like we're talking weeks, not days. So just follow the directions on the package. They usually will outline what kind of ratio to use. So we're gonna add that in, give it a stir, and you just wanna stir this until the salt and sugar are dissolved. It smells so freaking good already, and I think we're just about there. So you can do this. You can bring hot water up to a boil, add it all in after the fact. You can just do it on the stovetop, whatever you wanna do. But one of my biggest tricks to brines and speeding up the process is, say for example, we're gonna do 2 pieces of brisket here for this pastrami. So we need about 10 quarts of liquid in total to cover those. So what I typically do is split them in half. We've got 5 quarts in here and 5 quarts of ice. And to speed it up, you just pour this over the 5 quarts of ice. You get your 10 quarts and you're good to go. You don't have to wait for it to cool down or any of that. So we're gonna use a tub like this for pastrami. You can use whatever you've got on hand. You also don't need these wire racks. I like to use them because it keeps it elevated off the bottom. And if you're doing multiple pieces, it'll keep them kind of separate from each other. The brine needs to react with all sides of the meat in order to like penetrate and do its job. So if you have 2 pieces of meat that are touching, the brine's not getting in between those 2 spots. So when you pull it out of the brine, you're gonna have a section that didn't react with that brine at all. But we are gonna go in periodically and like turn this every day occasionally. This method kind of helps protect if you forget a day, if you skip a day, if something happens and you can't get to it. This is like a little insurance policy. Again, not completely necessary. You don't need it. You just gotta make sure you're watching it and go in and turn it. So we're gonna pour this over our ice. So we'll just mix this up and let that ice melt. You need it to come down under 40 degrees or 42 degrees. I can tell we're already there because this ice isn't even fully melting. It's already pretty cold. So we're gonna set this aside for now. All right, so this recipe is for basically just a portion of this brisket, but we're gonna show you how to do both the flat and the point today. A brisket is made up these 2 separate muscles with a little bit of fat like running through the middle. This piece is the flat and this piece is the point. It really, you can use either for pastrami. It just depends on what you prefer. The point is a little fattier, it's a little richer. The flat is a little bit more lean. Also, this brisket is already trimmed, but if you wanna see how to trim, make sure to check out some of our Learn articles or other videos on Traeger.com, and you can get a full rundown from some of our favorite pitmasters on how to trim this up. All I'm gonna do to this today is just cut it in half. When you decide to make a pastrami, you can get it like this from your butcher. You can go in and ask them for the point so you can see This fat, that goes all the way through up to the top here. And this is the flat. So we've got a little bit of the point hanging on here, but basically what you'll see is like this fat cap up. All right, so back to our brine. We are gonna put these in, and this is gonna be a 5-day brine. So what you're gonna wanna do is we'll just put one piece in. I'm gonna put this thinner piece on the bottom. Kind of weigh it down a little bit. And then we'll put this wire rack on top to kind of, again, create that separation. And we'll put the point in on this side. Just make sure it's fully submerged. If you need to, you can put a stack of plates on top of here to make sure it stays down, but you want it completely submerged the whole time. Again, anything that comes out of that brine isn't gonna get that curing, it isn't gonna get that reaction with the prog powder. So you wanna make sure that it's fully submerged. All right, so we've got a set here that's been brining for about 5 days. We're gonna take them out and take a peek. So you can tell already how much the color has changed. It's kind of shifted to a brown more so than a red or pink. So we're gonna transfer these to a wire rack. So you can tell, if you look at these ones compared to these, you can tell how much change happens over the course of 5 days. This is what a fully brined one should look like. It kind of looks a little questionable and unappealing, but I promise you this is what it's supposed to look like. A key step that I think a lot of people skip is we're gonna put these on a wire rack. You wanna make sure they're not touching so it can fully circulate around them. But we're gonna put these in the fridge overnight. And what that does is it helps to kind of like redistribute the brine. It helps to let all of this excess fall off. If you were to put these on the grill right now, you might end up with an overly salty pastrami. So this step really is key to get like a perfectly salted finished product. So I know it takes a little bit of time. Don't skip it. You're already 5 days in. What's another one? So we'll pop these in the fridge. We'll grab another one and we'll come right back. Okay, so we had these in the fridge overnight. They're nice and dried off, ready to go. The last step before we hit the grill, classic part of pastrami is the spice coating that goes on the outside. You can kind of play around with this and do some different things with it. We're using black pepper and coriander today. You could add some mustard seeds to this, some garlic, really whatever you want to do. Kind of bring some of those flavors of the brine through. And again, on this, however coarse this is really up to you. I like to do it a little finer, but again, personal preference, play around with it and see what you like. All right, so if you don't have one of these at home, you can just, holy shit. I just inhaled black pepper. If you don't have one of these at home, you can use like a mortar and pestle. I've been in situations where I don't have either of these, and you can use like a heavy bottom cast iron pan and just kind of like smash the hell out of it. Don't feel like you can't do it if you don't have this. There's plenty of options. There's like some larger chunks in here, but overall, the rest of it's like pretty fine. I think the peppercorn is broken down, but the coriander is kind of just like crushed. So that's how I like it. Do whatever you like. So you just want to make sure this is well coated. Some people only coat one side of it. I like it all the way around. It's really up to you. But you don't know until you try it, so give it a shot. Try again next time. So you're gonna go all the way around and I just kind of like press it in. If you have like a vac sealer at home, a great way to do this is to season it, vac seal it for just a few minutes so it like really adheres. Take it out of the vac seal and throw it on. Just wanna make sure it's completely covered. So I think a couple of things that people always confuse about pastrami is what the difference between a pastrami and a corned beef is. They both come from the brisket. The difference, the main difference, is the way they're cooked after they're brined. So a pastrami is smoked. You get that nice, rich smokiness coming off of it, whereas a corned beef, after it's brined, it's then boiled. Both have their own purposes, but personally I like pastrami. These are ready to go to the grill. Last thing we want to do is we're going to monitor the temperature with the meter. I'm using a meter XL, so I'm going to temp both of them. If you only have one, or if you have another type of thermometer, I would just temp the flat. This one's going to be done way faster than this one, and it doesn't have as much wiggle room because it doesn't have the same fat content or marbling, so you have a little bit more forgiveness there. In that case, I would just monitor the flat. After that one's done, keep an eye on the point. But we'll do both today. Get that right in the middle. Get this in our point. So we're gonna cook these on the new Woodridge Pro. We are smoking at 225 using Super Smoke, and I've got hickory pellets in here today. You can use whatever you like. I think it's super nice on a pastrami, so it's what we're rolling with. Let's get these to the grill. We're gonna wrap these with butcher paper today. You could use foil if you want to. I prefer butcher paper just for the bark that it gives. Butcher paper is a little bit more breathable, whereas foil really holds it all in. But it's your personal preference, and I mean it. Foil is a little bit easier. Once you get the hang of paper, it's easy, but you just gotta do it a couple of times. So use what you're comfortable with. All right. We've got two sheets here, one for the flat, one for the point. You can tell they're different lengths. My flat is a little smaller, so we'll use this one. You want to give yourself a little bit more wiggle room with the point because it's so much taller. One trick to these is, as you can tell, the butcher paper likes to roll back up. Just want to give the table a couple spritzes. And then spritz the top. So we're gonna start with our flat. So these have been smoking for about 5 or 6 hours. You want it to come up to around 160. I start with it a little bit further in from the edge. You're gonna take this and roll it up over. And then on the corners, kind of like tuck them in, just like a little present. And then what you're gonna do, you're gonna flip, and as you go, grab your hand on the top and kind of pull it up tight so you're really wrapping it nice and tight. You don't want a lot of like air sitting in here, so you want it to be as tight as you can get it. And then you just continue rolling until you have a nice little package. Meter goes back in. All right, we'll put this one on and wrap the next one. One more time, meter comes out. We'll see if this will work. Sometimes if you've got a really big piece, you can double up the butcher paper. So you've got one piece here and another piece kind of shingled next to it. It'll give you a little bit more room to wrap. We'll see if this will work. We might have to add another one in. I think we're okay. Pull it up nice and tight. up and over, and then pull it back. Time. Meter goes back in, and these will go back on. They're gonna go back on for another 5 or 6 hours. Just trust the meter, keep an eye on it, it'll tell you what to do. We're gonna pull those off, take a peek at how we did. A little tip for you, if you've got a cutting board on a surface, just put a little wet paper towel or rag underneath. Won't run away from you. So we're gonna start with our flat. With these ones, if you're wrapping in foil at this point, you would wanna open that foil up, let it, we call it burping, let it burp a little bit, let it breathe. There's a bunch of moisture and steam that gets built up inside of that foil, and you wanna let that escape. You gotta let it out before you go to rest, otherwise it's just gonna continue to cook. I don't worry about it quite as much with butcher paper, so we're just gonna roll into the next step. This is something that I like to do with pork butts, brisket, anything that's been cooking low and slow for a long time. I'll wrap it in plastic wrap. When it comes to this stage, we'll pop it in a cooler. You wanna let it rest for, I think the longer the better, but minimum an hour. It's gonna give you a much better product if you give it that time. Again, same thing, you wanna get it nice and tight. Pull up those edges. If you're doing a long cook like a brisket, this will also help soften the bark just a little bit, so it's a more pleasant bite. So we'll set that one aside, get our next one. This one is juicy. So another tip for these ones, when you're checking finish temp, again, always go by the meter, but your second piece of like insurance, so to speak, because each brisket is different, is by feel. So my personal preference on this is I want a little bit more structure in a pastrami than I do in a brisket. So I still want to feel almost room temp butter, but not quite. This one feels perfect. We're gonna take that out. Again, nice and tight. You can see all this juice over here like starting to come out. This is gonna be a good one. So I like to rest mine in a cooler. If you don't have that, there's plenty of other things you can rest it in. It doesn't have to be a nice cooler like this. It can just be a cheap cooler from the grocery store, as long as it's like airtight and it'll hold in the heat. I've got a couple in here that have been resting, so we'll pull those out first. I can tell just by like feeling it and squishing it, it's gonna be a good one. Okay, these go in. We'll let those rest. That'll be lunch later. Okay, this has been a hell of a process. We're a week in, plus another 12 hours, 15, 16 hours waiting for these guys. So let's see how we did. They smell so freaking good. So there is our point. Oh my God, that's so good. And our flat. Woo, baby. These guys are ready to slice. The thickness, it's up to you. The other thing with pastrami is a lot of people will eat it like a cold cut, so you can chill these down. If I was gonna do that, I would leave them in the wrap, let them chill down completely, put them in the fridge overnight, let them come completely cooled, and then slice them. We're gonna slice these ones up hot. Again, you could do it either way. Just like a brisket, you wanna slice it against the grain. You can look down here on the bottom to kind of see what direction the grain is going. This is going this way, so we're gonna start with this corner and slice back. You can see already like this bright pink color. So pretty. So this is our finished product. You can see that color goes all the way through. That's not from smoke, that's from the curing process. If you've done this a few times, there's moments where you might end up with a little discoloration in the center. What that means is they didn't brine long enough. So next round, add a day or two. Again, just play around with it until you get one that you like. This looks freaking awesome. I'm gonna cut into this way. You can already tell like the difference in the flat versus the point, in the marbling, and kind of what that looks like. So this is the tail end of that flat that's still connected to the point. This up here is the point. You can see all the fat striations like going through. Again, try them both, see which one you like. I'm a flat gal, so we will give a bite here, see how he did. I love all the cracked black pepper on the edges. So good. Perfect amount of smoke. You can see in this one, we don't have any of that discoloration I was talking about, so perfect amount of time. It's not too salty, believe it or not, with all that salt that was in here. I think that key step in the middle of really letting it rest in the fridge overnight, it does wonders for this pastrami. So again, I know this is a project. When you break it down, it's a lot of fun, something to play around with and try. So give it a shot at home. If you decide to do it, do a bunch of them. You're already committing. You're already in for a week and a half. So why not make a bunch, keep it in the freezer. Perfect for St. Patrick's Day if you want to go that route, if you want to go to Reuben. Again, I personally like to keep some in my fridge. So give it a shot. The recipe's in the description down below. Make sure to like and subscribe and come back next week.